And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and email this out once it's complete with also the document that I'm going to be also reviewing throughout this training. All right, so let's start off with a few things is that I'm going to ask that we keep all questions till the end. So we've disabled the chat and we're just going to have some time at the end that I'm going to open up that we can ask general questions. So we do ask that everyone just kind of follow along, pay attention, and we'll go from there. All right, so let's start with, I'll start with, again, just a quick overview. You know, how do we get to all our wonderful training material on Concur? I know there's a lot of questions about that sometimes. So if you just go to csudh.edu, up in the search bar, simply search for Concur. Hit search. Click on Concur. And you'll see over here that we have our Concur main page, right? This is our main website for Concur for the campus. Over here, you see that we are doing trainings, right? Continued travel trainings, all the way through the end of the fiscal year. So all the way up until July 1st. So this will be updated as, you know, more times come along, but just something to note. And as you scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see this is where our training materials lie. And on the right-hand side is where we find all the wonderful stuff for our approvers. And as you go in here, there's a section over here for approving. And then there are these different levels here, right? So reviewing and approving a travel request, reviewing and approving an expense report, and then delegating your approval abilities while you're out. So be that vacation, an absence, a leave, anything like that, just so that travel does not halt in your division or area. Approvals route to you know, designated or delegated individuals that can continue to approve travel on behalf of your area, so it does not stop. Okay, so let me start off with, so we created a little document here that I'm going to kind of run through with everybody. And so one thing I want to note is that since you guys, everyone in here is a reviewer, you are an approver, you want to note that we want to make sure that we are delegating, right, your authority of approval when you go out. We have had a lot of issues of, you know, approvers going out on vacation and then the individuals in the area can't get their approvals. And sometimes they have to travel, you know, really quick turnaround sometimes depending on how soon you get alerted, and these now have to halt. So one thing to note here is that, so for managers, so you may set up any other existing approver as a temporary delegate. If you do not set up a delegate, travel will stay in your queue for 10 days and will then forward to your manager when left unapproved, right? So the system has that 10-day default, but, you know, that could be how quickly your team has to travel. So we want to make sure that you're going through and delegating this so that those approvals are just getting forwarded accordingly in the system to the next in line. Okay, so same with budget approvers. So you may only set up your manager as a temporary delegate. If you do not set up the delegate, travel will skip budget approval after 10 days and then route to the next approver. When it makes it to AP, it will be routed back for budget approval, where it will wait for 10 days again. Travel will not be processed without budget approval. That's very important, right? That budget approval is a very important piece in Concur. And it is mandatory, it is required. So we want to make sure that, you know, that delegation is set up. If you know your fiscal officer is going to be out of town or your budget approver is going to be out of town, set that delegation up so we don't run into any of these issues here. All right. And this is kind of over here, a screenshot of where to go to, right? Like I just showed, going to our website, going to that training material, coming over here, delegating approver during the episodes. All right. So another thing that all you approvers have, you have the capability to run some reports, right? There are reporting tools in Concur. So employees who are classified as supervisors with the HR management system have access to Concur Intelligence. So you can delegate up to 2 people to have reporting access. And the instructions to do that are, again, found over here. And so I will go over to our website. And we can come back over here to reporting tools. So here are the step-by-step guides of everything that you need to do, who has access, how to actually access those reports, and then the different types of reports you have available to you, right? So there's ones on requests, there's one on expenses, and so there's different, levels of detail and information that you can gather about your area, about your division, about your team, as you're traveling or working through the system. And then ultimately how to run a report. Okay? So let's go back. So reviewing travel requests, what to look for. So we want to start off always with these request headers. And so some of the common things we're seeing is that you want to look for your high hazard destinations. Are there going to be any personal days involved, right? Because these are all, red flags that you have to look for additional information on. And then the chart field, right? Some areas have individuals that are in, multiple classifications. They might have, they might work for 2 departments or 2 areas. Or you might be using a different chart field for these expenses based on, the justifications around your travel and who might be fronting the bill on that. So always make sure, as a reviewer, that you're looking at that request header, you're looking at all this information and make sure that it's accurate, right? Especially if you have new areas, right? If you've created new divisions or new areas, you want to make sure that they're active, right? And so you might be able to capture this if you see, oh, this is a chart field I don't recognize. Oh, they're brand new. Let me go make sure they're all set up so the workflow's built and it's good to go. All right. Also reviewing the expense summary. So making sure that your expenses are prorated when there are personal days involved, reviewing attachments for further info about the purpose or the reasoning or the justifications of your trip, and then reviewing all estimated expenses for reasonableness and completeness. One thing we're noticing a lot is that there are errors, right? There are alerts, there are errors, and there are warnings in the system. Okay. And so a lot of these errors will always tell you, and alerts will tell you what's needed, right? So is a specific attachment required? Is it attached, right? Is there an action that needs to be taken? What's the action item? So they're pretty descriptive, they're pretty thorough, and you should have a good sense of what you're looking for and what you need to correct or review. Approval options, you have 10 days to take one of these actions when something comes into your queue, right? So you can approve and forward, or send back the request to the traveler. And usually that's when you catch a mistake, you catch an error, something needs to be changed. And I would always put a note in to just make sure to add a comment. So your traveler is not guessing why this got kicked back to them. Okay, and so they know, hey, you forgot the agenda. Hey, you forgot this attachment, or this doesn't look right, or I need that memo from the dean or that special email, something that's missing. Make sure that you kind of go back and address that. Okay, so when we get over to reviewing your expense reports, so what to look for. So again, just review these warnings, alerts, and errors. So the warnings are these yellow triangles here. They do not go away after the correction, right? So for example, Concur won't know if an agenda was attached. So the warning is a reminder for the traveler and something for the approver to check for, right? And so these are just kind of FYIs. Hey, we're alerting you of these. Review them, read them, just make sure you've addressed them, but they're going to stay as these soft warnings so that everyone reviewing it knows what to kind of look for and what we're doing, right? And so these warnings say, review for accuracy. It's important to look into them since they indicate that there might be some conflicting data in the expense report. Okay, and then there are errors. Errors are red boxes with X's. And these are serious problems that need to be fixed, right? And so these are usually hard stops. So if you have errors or X's, red X's, it usually won't allow you to continue. Sometimes it might, but you want to make sure you're addressing those. Because those are then when they get kicked back, it's going to be, something wasn't fixed and something wasn't done. These yellow ones, you can move forward with them. They are soft stops, but just make sure that you have the stuff addressed. Other things to look for, right? Do the travel dates and expenses match up with the request, right? We do see a lot of that right now where, some individuals travel a lot, they have multiple requests, right? And so it's kind of confusing sometimes, right? Make sure that these travel dates match up with your expenses and they're linked to the right expense reports, right? So we do have a lot of times where like, hey, you've linked that expense report to the wrong request. The travels dates don't match up. And so if you're looking at those, we should be able to catch those before they get submitted and then have to get kicked back and go through the entire process again. Where the expenses reduced for personal travel dates, right? So if a traveler, states that they're traveling for a week and within that week there are 2 personal days, make sure they're not including any of those expenses in. Compare the total claim against what was requested. So we want to make sure we're looking at the report summaries and the expenses. So below here, we have a screenshot of what that looks like. We have the report summary. It's usually on the right. And we have the expenses on the left. And so the report summary is showing the amount of the request, right? So this is the total amount. And then the expense shows what's being claimed. All right. Verify and review attachments. Very, very important. So one thing to note is that requests do not come to AP anymore, right? I know everyone's used to a request and getting a request ID. Concur is now auto-assigning those to the system. And so whatever is you're attaching in your requests, they don't carry over to the expense report. So you want to make sure that you are reattaching everything in the expense report, because as it's going through, we're noticing that I put it on the request, so it has to be on the expense report. But that's not the case. So make sure that we are reviewing our receipts and attachments to make sure we have them. So review all expenses for reasonableness and completeness. Are the required itemized receipts uploaded? Approval options. You have 10 days to take one of these actions again, right? Approve and forward, or send back to the user. Hey, you're missing this backup. This image wasn't clear. You cut off, the totals on the receipt, and use the comments section as you're going back and forth with the traveler. And then down here, we have common reasons for rejections from AP. So missing the conference agenda, missing itemized receipts and invoices. The built-in mileage calculator was not used. This is for expense report purposes. It is a required thing and is noted. Manual overrides of system calculated mileage. No description for any charges or what the expense report is for. So use these description boxes, Dates of expenses are outside of the travel request dates. So this is, again, often occurs when the expense report is linked to the incorrect request, or sometimes you just, misselect the date and it doesn't match up. So just make sure the dates all kind of make sense. The amount is due to the university and was not reimbursed. So we got to also make sure that we're reimbursing back anything that we need to. And we have to go, get the receipts from the cashier's office or pay online using our new online payment method, getting that receipt, attaching that to your expense report, and then moving forward. So make sure we're, closing the loop on all those things before going forward and submitting it over. Budget approver never approved and must be routed back for budget approval. Mileage marked as personal. And then traveler added travel card or ghost card transactions manually rather than adding the transactions already existing in their available expenses. So this is, again, when you're using that travel card or the ghost card, those line items, those backup, those transactions are already in Concur. So don't bring them in manually. Save yourself some steps on that. But these are some of the things we want to look for. All right. And then I will jump back over here to our website, just so we can kind of, so again, I said, here is where we can find a lot of that information that we just went over. So when you click into here, reviewing and approving travel requests, I really encourage and stress and urge to everyone, please come in here and give this a once over, right? Read this, review this, watch some of the videos. It will take, the reviewing and approving all this, the difficulty out of it. So over here, there's all these great videos, what you're looking for when you're reviewing these things. And then with the expense report, there's a video on that, going through all the different sections, the areas, the various types of alerts, things you're looking at. And then over here, ultimately, delegating an approver during absence. So how to set up that delegation while you're out, right? So come into your, request for delegates, add a person, select that they can approve for you, right? And if there's you can put a set time period for that week that you're on vacation or the week that you're out, so that those requests route in the system automatically to the appropriate individual. All right. So that is pretty much all we have at a very high level, at a very, just an overview, some of the common errors that we're seeing, how you can, work through them. And again, always, if you have questions or concerns, you can email concurtravel@csudh.edu. The resources can be found at our Concur main webpage. And now we will open it up for questions. Perfect. Tim.
Hi, Ryan.
Hey.
Quick question. Is there a difference between when I click approve versus approve and forward?
Yes. So approved is you're saying that you're approving something and that's it. And then the system will then route it off to the next individual automatically. Approve and forward is then you designating who you're forwarding that to in the system. Okay, and so usually that might be a more manual process. And then also when you are getting into like if you have but I think that's pretty much it actually.
Okay, I'm just going to keep approving and let the machine do it.
Yep. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, and just to quickly add to that, it's usually when you want to get another set of eyes for some extenuous reason that's not built into the workflow already. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Elena, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Elena. Hello, Ryan. I have a question about these personal days. Most of our conferences are going through Saturday, or people are flying back on Saturday, or going to a conference on Sunday. How do we deal with that?
So that's perfectly okay. So as long as you're having a travel day, that travel day is not a personal day, even if it does occur on the weekend. So as long as you're traveling on official CSUDH travel and you're authorized, like conference starts Monday, but it starts at 7 a.m. and we're authorizing you to stay there Sunday night, so you don't have to drive in or fly in that morning. That's not considered a personal day. That's still a part of your travel. So you don't have to make any adjustments there.
Okay, thank you.
Stephanie?
Hi, Ryan. I was wondering if you could give examples of high hazard destinations.
Yeah, so I mean, that would really be depending on the location that you're traveling. If there are any, wars or any turmoil in that city or area, and we need to just be alerted of, a risk of traveling to that city. So that is usually what we're looking for there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Leslie?
I had a question about receipts for the expense reports and CPOs.
Okay.
I had a expense report that was submitted and returned because there wasn't an official receipt. And I wanted to know what would qualify as an official receipt for CPOs for intercampus payments.
So, that's a very specific question, but usually what we're doing with CPOs, which are now called IFTs, we are making sure that we have some kind of agreement between the campuses, right? That's showing that another campus is picking up something, or it's paid centrally, or it will be paid centrally. So we want to make sure that we have that backup for that. And so if you have concerns about that, feel free to email in, concurtravel@csudh.edu, and we can address like what that looks like exactly.
Okay.
I
thank
can
you.
add to that
Yeah.
also. I think what we would want to see on the expense report is the invoice or bill or whatever it is that's going to be IFT, as well as the request for invoice, which is the form that you use to request the IFT. That way we can see, okay, this is going to be paid by another campus and they've already completed the paperwork and submitted it according to the instructions on the request for invoice form. Does that answer your question?
It does. I'll email you to get the information for the actual form itself, because
Okay, yeah, it's on our
Yeah.
forms website.
okay, thank you.
Mhm. Anything else?
Hi, Ryan. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't actually do as much in the system as Lauren does, our arm in the College of Ed. We had one instance that was, as you know, many, many rounds of revision in Concur, and the last error was that when we sent a memo for extension of the timeline, because it had passed the 60 days, we put the email address in wrong in the Adobe sign, so it went to the wrong email. So it was like this sort of delayed process. And I was just wondering, in that particular case, is there any way to get around some of that? Because the memo process was outside of Concur, and Concur is supposed to keep everything in one place. Like, I don't know, is there any function in Concur that can we add a function where you can approve late travel exceptions to travel policies in Concur? Because you know what I mean? You know the situation I'm talking about.
Right, yeah, so unfortunately, we can't, right? So, one thing I always remind everyone is that these systems are not perfect, right? We have to adopt them, right? They're provided to us. We're not the only CSU that uses these systems. And a lot of our policy exceptions or anything that we might need those special memos to, they're kind of within our area, and they just kind of have to be attachments to our documents, right? So there's nothing that's going to be built in the system that says, oh, when you go over this, you need to, it's going to kick off a document, it's going to route to, whoever your approver is, be that the provost or someone, there's no way to kind of build that into the system. All right, Deb?
So Ryan, just to follow up on that. So even though we can't build that, because I get that it's, it's constrained in some of those areas, but we can attach the memo inside of the system, correct? And
Right. Yeah.
and I don't know if fool it is the right word, but fool it to be able to send it on so it goes through the process quicker. Is that a workaround, or could it be a workaround?
Yeah, no, man, that's exactly what we currently do. These memos and these approvals, they're just added as attachments, right? So they're attachments to the request, or they're attachments to the expense report. I think the issue, Jessica, that you were, referencing was that, we needed to be copied on that attachment so we could expedite it, and our Concur website email address was mistyped, so we never got it. So, that's kind of on the department, on the area, to just make sure, yeah, we are, emailing concurtravel@csudh.edu, and we'll get it, and we'll work through it. All right.
Or what we should have done is put it back through the process through Concur. So we didn't need to email it to you. That's what I think.
Correct. Yeah, you wouldn't
I
even have
email
to. I think it was just more of a formality that you looped us into that process. But all you had to do was get it signed and just upload it to the thing and submit it through and said it's been submitted and the attachments are there and we would have been good to go. Yeah. Claudia.
Hi, so I'm wondering, it's okay if the expenses exceed the estimates, right? Because I'm wondering, for example, if somebody submits a travel request, but they forgot to include the registration, but then when they submit the claim, they have a registration receipt. So that's fine, right? Or would that be up to the budget officer to
Yeah,
decide whether
So
they?
that is okay, and it is also up to the fiscal officer or arm of that area, right? So you set the standards for your area as to, you know, what you're expecting to see and what the budget limits of each individual's travel are. And so then again, if they go over budget, I always say, remember, our requests are just estimates, right? They're just estimates to give the fiscal officers in the area a general sense or an idea of what that traveler expenses are gonna be and how much that's gonna hit your budget. So it's all up to the fiscal officer and arm to say, hey, you know, if flights go up by more than $100, we have to talk and you know, look at our budget. Or, you know, if you stay under 100, that's fine, go ahead, proceed, travel, come back, submit your expenses, and you're good to go. But I think ultimately it goes back to the request, right? Make sure we really are reviewing those requests. So you want to be seeing registration, you want to be seeing, you know, anything that is expected, right? You should see there and add an estimate, right? And then when the expense report comes in, you're not caught off guard like that to where then you have to make budgetary decisions to go, okay, I'm gonna have to push this through. All right,
Okay,
perfect. Lauren.
thank you.
So in regards to the change in the per diem for 2024, so that's no longer up to the division or department to say that the receipts are required and will pay up to actual. It's only the per diem that's,
Correct.
so we're spending more money now, correct?
Correct, yep. That is a government mandate, that is a law, there's nothing we can do around that. We just have to abide, comply, and follow, unfortunately. The only caveat to that is that, you know, there is the travel card, since it is a state paid card. Receipts are required for that, but if an employee pays out of pocket, and you're involving meals in the per diem, no receipts are required.
And Lauren,
Thank
you
you.
can, I know you guys, you know, do that with meals sometimes, but you can reduce the trip in other areas. You just can't not give them the per diems. So if
Yep.
you want to say, we'll only pay up to 500 of your registration or something like that, like you can do that in other areas.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Ryan, could you and the team cover just a little bit, because it's come up similar to what Lauren asked, but it's about non-employee travel and employee travel and then group travel, because if it's group travel, it can go under the same per diem. So could you cover that just a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So, for group travel, that is, faculty or staff that is traveling with a student, right? With an official CSUDH student. So that could be athletics with their teams. That could be faculty on a trip, you know, to a museum or something. They are all considered a group when it comes to that, expense. And so the per diems that are associated with that follow and are in line with employee travel, right? Because the employee is the chaperone and they are kind of the group leader of that trip. And so because of that, wherever they are traveling, the per diems hold for that location, right? For that city and that location, the employee and the students all abide by that per diem. If a student is traveling solo, that is not group travel, so without employee, without faculty or staff, then they're considered solo travelers and they would go off of the non-employee per diem, which is at a flat rate. All right. Any other questions? Claudia.
Sorry about that. I just had a follow-up question regarding that. So that per diem that you're saying, if it's by group, then it's gonna be the staff member that's gonna be traveling with the students, right? So they're gonna submit that on their Concur. So
Correct.
it's gonna adjust based on the number of students, because what if they buy meals for the students with, because they can use their travel card, right, for the students if they're traveling?
Correct. Yep,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
no problem. Monica.
Ryan, I know you briefly touched on this at the onset of your presentation, but I just want to reemphasize the importance of upkeeping with reports too, and the impact that not only it has on Concur, but the impact it has on absence management. As we continue to evolve as a campus, we're utilizing our systems in different ways and relying far more on our data than we used to before. And so just reminding everyone that as you have vacancies, to make sure that absence management is updated. If you have individuals who are on a leave of absence, et cetera, especially if there is travel involved, the system won't necessarily know that that employee is on a leave of absence. And so just a reminder that it impacts now Concur in addition to absence management and time and labor.
Thank you.
Ryan, can you also hit on how, you know, the use of your cell phone and things like that can help maximize the system and all of that? Because a lot of people, when they travel, they're taking copies of receipts and all that, and maybe they don't know, they're not sure how the system can really make it seamless for travel. So can you touch on that just a little bit?
Definitely, that's a great question. So for that one, I'll share my screen over here. And we'll go over here to the training material, and there is the mobile app. And so the mobile app is really awesome because you can do almost everything that you can do online through the system, through the app, right? And it lists out here all the different things that you can do. So you can submit a request, submit an expense report, you can cancel, you can update, you can fully do all the functions almost on the app while you're traveling, while you're on the go. But one of the greatest things about the app is that it integrates with your cell phone camera. All right. And then basically you can take pictures and images of your receipt and your backup, and they automatically upload into Concur for you. So there's no more taking those small receipts and taping them to a piece of paper and standing at a copy machine. That goes away. Just make sure your images are clear, you know, nothing's cut off, because you all will be using that as your official backup, but it does make life a lot easier. So I would say, you know, if for anything, get the app just to use it as a scanner. And it is it is an option, right? It's not mandated, it's not required. And it does work for, you know, Android and Apple. And on our website there, at that website I brought up, you can find more information about all that.
And just to clarify, you can't create requests on it. It's for managing existing trips.
Correct.
So you would need to do the creation just online, and then you can manage the trip as you're traveling through the mobile app.
Yep. And anything else?
Hi, Ryan. I had
Yeah.
a question. How about a split funding? Like, the dean's office covers a certain amount and then the department covers a certain amount. How do we deal with those?
Yeah, so there is a section on our website, and so I will kind of direct you there. But if you come over here to expense reports, and then there is, you know, allocating expenses here. And so when you come over here, you can start to then allocate a certain expense to a additional chart field here, right? Or area. And then you can do that at a percentage or a flat amount. So that's kind of how that goes. And if you need any help, again, feel free to reach out to us and we can walk you through that. Kenny.
Yeah, going back to the phone app, is it just for receipts, or will they go to the right somewhere in the system for like registration, right? So we go to an event and you guys always ask for like the agenda or something. Can we take a picture of the agenda? Will that create a document that will then be in the system we can attach to our stuff?
Yeah,
instead
Definitely.
of doing the same thing, right? Having to, you know,
Yeah,
print it as a PDF and save it and then try and figure out how to get it uploaded and everything. So,
definitely. And that's why I just made that statement of make sure that that image is clear, it's legible. I know sometimes if you're taking a picture of something that's on the screen, it starts to blur out. You know, just make sure, because it's going to be used as official backup, that it's just crisp, it's clear, it's legible, it's not too far away that you have to, you know, zoom in to like 300 magnification. But yeah, you can definitely use it for any types of backup that you want to bring in the system. Like I said, use it to replace a scanner almost, you know?
great, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? All right, well, I'll give everyone back some time, but I hope this was really helpful. Like I said, I will put that document that I was referencing. We'll PDF it along with this recording and we'll email it to everyone on this call. And we'll go from there. Well, I appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Team AP. Appreciate you.